Good morning. It's been a while since I've videotaped anything while I was driving, but I thought today would be a good day. I've had a lot of things on my mind. I've been dealing with a lot of personal reflection and struggles. I'm learning a lot about my behaviors and my beliefs. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about being under construction as a person. And we're all familiar with, things being under construction, buildings, roads, things like that. And what usually happens during that time is things get shut down, roads get closed, things get torn down, redone, replaced, and all that stuff. And that's what I feel like was happening to me over the past, I would say just over the past year. I feel like I have been going under construction because at the beginning, when something goes under construction, it seems like a disaster area. Everything falls apart, everything's torn down, and that's exactly what's been happening to me. And so, like I said, I've also been reflecting on my addictions or my past addictions. Why was I addicted? What was I addicted to? Everybody has different types of addictions, and I think that they also fall into different kinds of coping skills. We all have different coping skills, and I've noticed one thing as I reflected on my alcoholism that I used to struggle with. Looking back into the beginning when I started drinking alcohol, when I was introduced to it was during a party. It was a graduation party. And I had never really been around alcohol because my family never drank. If they did, they never did it in front of me. And so I wasn't familiar with alcohol. And so I think that the way that it was presented to me was the beginning of my confusion, I guess, because everybody was celebrating. We were celebrating a graduation, and they had alcohol. So I was drinking pretty much for the first time. It's like I had drinks of alcohol, and so that would seem to think, well, this is what we do when we celebrate. Okay, well, that's not how it happened for me. When I did and engaged in that party and stuff, I realized that I liked the way that I felt. I liked the escape, the feeling of numbness, or like the freedom in my mind that I wasn't stressed, I didn't care, I wasn't worried or scared or insecure and all that. And so as time went on and alcohol was offered to me, I started putting myself in places where there was alcohol so that I could, have that thing happen again, like that celebration feeling, that freedom feeling of being free. And so, and I was 14 or 15 when this happened. I was probably 14 when I started drinking. But up until then, I was just a normal kid, a normal teenager, and, with stress and, all the stuff that teenagers come along with. And so I started drinking a lot. That's the way I like to feel. So it just was natural. It started becoming natural to me, and I did it. I started drinking every day. The older I got, I was into my 20s, and then by then I was completely addicted to alcohol and cigarettes. But through all that, the construction part that I'm talking about is, once I got away from alcohol and I realized that what it was doing was it was blocking my coping skills. I wasn't able to deal with my emotions, so I would drink. I didn't like feeling upset, so I would drink. I didn't like being disappointed, so I would drink. I mean, it became my reason. Everything that was involved with my feelings is why I started drinking. And so I didn't even know myself anymore. By the time I decided that my life was falling apart, I didn't choose for my life to fall apart. It just did. It just started falling apart. And I didn't like that, but I also didn't know myself. I didn't know how to deal with anything. So I had to relearn it. I had to relearn myself and figure out why I'm having feelings. Why am I angry? Why am I upset? Why am I depressed? What stresses me out? Why can't I handle stress? All these things have been a lifelong journey for me. And so why would I revisit that? Why would I revisit alcohol after I have not had alcohol for at least 8 to 10 years? I went without drinking. Why would I revisit that? I don't know. It's like under construction. Here we go. Let's tear some things down. Let's start over. Let's redo this. Let's see what is behind all this. Okay? So some things have happened in the last 5 years. Not to me. Things have happened around me and to my family, to my friends, and in my deepest part of my soul, of my heart, I want to help them. I wanted to change their situation. I wanted to give them an answer to their struggles. Okay, and what I kept running into was they didn't want my help. They don't want my guidance. They don't want my wisdom. They don't want to share what I have to say. They don't want to see a different way. And I'm not saying my way was the right way. I'm just saying how I felt at the time. Is I wanted to show them, like, hey, there's a different way to do this, There's another way. You don't have to be upset. You don't have to be stuck. You don't have to be miserable. And so I started pushing onto them the things that made me free. Things that made me renew myself. Which, everybody don't agree with. I chose forgiveness. I choose to forgive things that I would have never thought I would forgive. And I started doing that because I knew that would bring peace rather than destruction. Like, I've suffered many things like that. Suffered many things that were destroyed, that were really important to me. And so I got a lot of pushback, I got a lot of rejection, and you can say, yeah, I didn't handle it well. I don't handle rejection well at all. And so, the farther and farther away I got pushed or rejected, the more secluded and the more alone I felt. Even though I know I'm not alone, I know that I have peace, but I literally could feel my peace being invaded. And my joy was being destroyed. And everything that I held on to, everything that made me free from my alcoholism, my addictions, the cigarettes, I don't smoke anymore. Everything that I gathered, all my security system was being disarmed. And I didn't know how to handle that because I guess it's never happened. I never had that part challenged inside of me. And so, I started believing that I was going under construction. I started seeing my life before me being destroyed. It was just like the only thing that made sense was that I'm going under construction. That's all there is to it. I'm being torn down so I can be rebuilt again, restructured, and a new security system. Trust me. I'm going to check that security system because what happened to me over the last several years, I would have never guessed. Especially how solid I was with my sobriety, my peace, my relationship with God. All that was solid. I thought there's nothing that can destroy this. And I would tell people that, nothing's going to make me return to my vomit. Nothing's going to make me go back to my old ways, and except for, being destroyed. Destroy something and see what happens. Let's see what happens here. Okay, so, but that also brings an opportunity to be rebuilt, which will be stronger than the last time. And if it gets destroyed again, then, so be it. But I'm not going to stay in a state of destruction just because I've been tested. I'm sorry, the sun is right there. And I gotta dump this. Hang on one second. We're gonna pause. Alright, so we're back. So when something's tore down and rebuilt, remodeled, whatever you want to call it, there is a good possibility that it's going to be stronger than the last time. That's what I'm hoping. And it also brings me back to remembering there's an Old Testament and a New Testament. So if I go back to the Bible, which I am doing, because I want to go back to the Bible because that was the beginning of my new foundation when I was first torn down, when I first came out of everything, when I realized that my life was falling apart, when I was born again, after my life was destroyed the first time. Okay, so that was the Old Testament. So the New Testament is going to be the new reconstruction. And so I'm going to have a different testimony now. And I believe that that's how we come to repentance or changing our mind. I mean, you can't change your mind if you don't come to a new thought, a new perspective. And so even though I was saved and born again, there still needs to be a growth process. Okay, there's still going to be a growth process, and that's what has happened to me. And even though I was holding on to the fact that I can't change my mind, I can't go back, I can't see any other way than the way that I was saved, or the way that I believe, or the reason reasons why I read the Bible. I started getting into that stone cold mindset that nothing's going to change my mind but God. But God can change your mind. My life came to a struggle again, and it's because I was getting that hardness of heart again. And even though I have been saved, I was still pushing my beliefs, okay? And that's going to be really weird to say that, because we're supposed to, confess our faith, okay? There's something that I'm learning with this, and I want to share it. I want to talk about it. I want to hear opinions. I want to communicate. That's what I'm lacking. That's what my Old Testament was lacking. Okay, was communication. I desired it, but I wasn't engaging in it on my side or the other side. It's like communication takes two parts. And so that also reminds me, which is bringing me to this new study with myself, is that my Old Testament was a separation from intimacy with God, okay? Even though I was personally experiencing the revelation of God and the knowledge of God and finding God within myself and in the world that I live in, I could find peace because he said that he was in the world but not of the world. Okay, and so back to the New Testament. What is the New Testament for? The New Testament is to bring us back into communion with God. That's what Jesus came for, is so that we could have life. Okay? He came so that we could have life. And how can you have life without the Spirit of God within you? That's how we have life, is because He breathed His life into us. He breathed the breath of life. And what do we call the breath of life? What is the Word? The Word is with God, and that is our confession, is that we believe that we have God within us, God's breath of life, because He is life. Okay, He is the life inside of us, the Spirit within us. Okay, and when we don't know that, we have an empty house. Pretty much, we have just a framework. Okay, we just have a framework of the construction site. If we don't know that the Spirit of God wants to dwell within us, okay, and not everybody allows that. Everybody doesn't welcome that spirit of life, okay? And that could get complicated, because I was confused, and I probably still am a little bit, that if God breathed the breath of life into every creature that has life, then why doesn't every creature choose God? That's kind of my personal moment of confusion there. It's like, well, how can we not choose God if He chose to give us His Spirit? Okay, so I can't explain that. I don't know yet. But what I can reflect on is that if we don't know we have the Spirit of God within us, then just any old spirit can come and dwell in us. Just like if you just let anybody build your house, you may get some people that aren't experienced. Some people, I don't know why why it's blurry right there like that. But anyway, if you just let anybody build your house or come into your house, then you may have a lot of unknown in your house. You may have things you don't want in your house, and it could cause a lot of chaos and whatever, and you may have to go under construction again. So if you want to build a firm, solid foundation, then we have to be able to undergo construction. Okay, I'm not saying to avoid construction, because obviously that's not going to happen. If you are renewing your mind and you are like I am, and I like to seek the truth, I like to understand life, and and have it abundantly, and so to understand what that all means for our personal life, we have to be free from condemnation. We have to be free from oppression from the world. We have to be free within ourselves. Okay? And that was the beginning of my whole journey, was that I was not free. I was stuck inside. I call it my living hell. I was stuck in living hell before I was born again. And I'm not there again, even though I went back to some of my old habits. They're not habits that are going to stick this time. I revisited them, yes, but they don't have that hold on me the way the Old Testament did. That's where I believe this repentance comes in, is that we can know God, but we can also drift away. But once you drift away after you've already known God, you can't unknow God. You can't I don't believe that even though we drift away and we may fall, we may, how do you need God? If you are like God and you think you are all powerful, then you won't need God. So we'll remain human. We remain broken in a sense that we have to be willing to break down some thoughts, to be able to reflect and say, look, you know what? I was believing this, but I wasn't really right, because if you're constantly learning and seeking truth, we are living in a changing world. If you look at your body, just for instance, if you look at your body as an infant, and you say, okay, well, everything's perfect, everything's good, just the way it is, then it would never grow. It would never change. But our bodies we are living, so we're changing. And so we have to be able to move with that. And I'm not saying you have to. For myself, I have to. I don't like staying dormant in one place. I am changing. And even though I don't like some of the changes that I go through, I'm going through them. And there's going to be more changes and growth. So that's kind of all I wanted to talk about, because I'm driving and a lot of things go through my mind, and I've really lost my ability or my desire to talk about things. And this morning I just felt really pressured. I felt really pressured inside myself that I just need to start talking about these things and talk about my struggle, because it's not going to be easy. It's not comfortable. And if I go back and I think about what caused me to get lost, was the fact that I didn't want to go through changes. I didn't like having emotions. I don't like going through depression and breakups or things in life that don't make sense. It don't have to be always something bad. It could just be something that comes up in your life that don't make any sense, that you don't understand. That causes me stress. I like to understand things, but not everything is going to go my way. Not everything is going to make sense to me. And I have to let go of things like that. And I'm doing that. I actually started a project at my house to help me with this. And one of the things that I really have to force myself to do things sometimes. And so in order for me to distract myself from going into a regular old habit, just a bad habit, just sit back and ignore everything, I decided to do something intentional, to focus, to make myself focus on something else, something constructive that I do have control over, okay? And you can look at that at obsessive behavior or whatever, I don't care. I decided to paint my house. My house has never been painted that I know of, and it was built in 1946, and it's got the asbestos tile on it, and it's never been painted. So I took on this project back in September, and my house is newly painted. I did it. I had a couple hands to help me with the very high peaks of it, because I'm terrified of getting up on a ladder. But anyway, other than that, I've done everything else, and I'm getting to my garage next, starting this weekend while the weather's still halfway decent. I'm hoping to finish up the garage, and it is very rewarding, and it's very nice. It's very nice to feel that freedom, that I can actually change my mind. I can go under construction and be rebuilt. I can revisit things. I can change my mind, which changes my heart. And that's where I'm at. And I really hope to have some feedback. I would like to start my own Bible study again, and maybe be more consistent with this, because right now it's kind of hard for people to get together and have Bible studies at home. But that's what I'm going to reach out to people that are close to me and see if they want to start a Bible study, so we can go over these things and just give each other a place where they can feel some freedom, with no condemnation, no judgment, nothing expected of you, okay? No laws to follow, to be human, okay? We have mistakes, we have flaws, we have bad habits, but if you have the love of God in you, then you should be able to open your door to somebody who wants to know why you have the faith that you have. That's what we're called to do. That's how we should share and confess our faith, is when someone comes to us, okay? The modern church has it all backwards. That's just my opinion. That doesn't mean people don't believe in God. I'm not saying that. I'm just going back to the Bible, and that's all I want to share, is my faith. And if you don't care about my faith, then that's okay. I'm not going to try to change your mind, because I've already been down that way. I've already went that way, and I found out, and I realized, the very truth that I believe, I was denying it at the same time. Because if I believe only God can change my mind, then the same is also for you. Only God can change your mind. I can't change your mind. Nobody can change your mind. That's all there is. So thanks for listening, and we'll be talking soon. Thank you.